My first reptile was a green iguana, and although I was a kid and I didn't have to pay for any of the upkeep, I'm sure it was very expensive for my parents. But that got me thinking, what are the 7 cheapest reptiles that are great for beginners? Well, let's just kick it off with number 7 on the list, bearded dragons. Bearded dragons are a tough and hardy species. They're basically like the dogs of the reptile world. You can literally put one on your shoulder and it'll stay there for hours. There's actually this one pastor that I know that'll put his bearded dragon on his shoulder as he's doing preachings. I think it's the funniest and coolest thing ever. They do require a little bit bigger of an enclosure. A lot of people use 40-gallon breeders. Some people say up to 75 gallons is like a minimum. This isn't a complete care guide, but there's a couple really great enclosures out there on YouTube for bearded dragons. Don't just put them in sand with one rock and a light and that's it. They do require UVB, which is like a special type of lighting that mimics the sun. It gives them the vitamins that they need. They also need a basking area to get to the temperatures that they need it to be. The only reason it's number 7 on the list, in my opinion, is because of the caging requirements. They do need big enclosures to be able to burrow and also climb up on rocks and everything. So if you can provide them with that, by all means, I think they're one of the best reptiles to start off with. Number 6 on the list, you know I was gonna say it, ball pythons. They're a hardy snake, they're very low maintenance, they're a very calm snake if you want to just chill and watch movies and just have your snake in one spot. They're kind of like bearded dragons where they only stay basically in one spot. There is some occasions, you know, there's going to be in the comments people saying, well, my ball python goes everywhere. Yeah, most ball pythons, I mean, it's in the name. They'll ball up and stay in one spot forever. They do eat rodents and they can be finicky eaters, so you kind of have to watch out for that. My ball python right here, he actually went off feed for quite a while. He actually went off feed for 4 months. I was getting a little scared. I was about to take him to the vet, but you know, he's been great ever since. And as you can see, he's a pretty healthy snake, so that's Iro for you guys. The really cool thing about keeping a ball python as a beginner is that when they feel a little threatened, I mean, I know he's okay, but I just barely took him out of his cage, so he's probably a little scared. Their first defense is not to strike. Their first defense is literally to ball up, which is why they're called ball pythons. So they would rather hide than to actually strike at somebody. So I think that that's one of the best reasons. If you're kind of new to snakes, you're still a little scared, ball pythons are awesome because 9 times out of 10, they won't strike you. They'll just ball up and hide. Number 5 on the list is Kenyan sand boas. Now, Kenyan sand boas, they're a really small snake. They don't get very big. I think it's like 3 to 4 feet. And they like to burrow, so if you think that you lost your snake, it's probably not lost. It's probably just burrowing under the sand, as their name implies. They have really cool colors. They're a cheap reptile that have been bred, just like ball pythons, for quite a while now. So there's some pretty interesting colors out there now. There's like albinos and xanthics and snows and all those kinds of colors. Also a very low maintenance animal, very easy to handle. They're kind of like this ball python right here. They're just super easy to take care of. They've been in the market for quite a while now, so if you want like a really nice color, it's not that expensive to get one of those. They're pretty easy to breed, and what's cool about sand boas and most boas is that they're actually live bearers. So if you were to breed some, you don't actually have to get an incubator for them. They'll just have live young. Number 4 on the list is leopard geckos. Leopard geckos hold a special place in my heart because when I was younger, one of the first reptiles that I got when I started getting back into reptiles were leopard geckos. I had 2 like tramper albinos. I think they were so beautiful. I did end up selling them, but they were some of the coolest geckos that I ever got, and that's actually what got me into geckos. They're a pretty easy species to take care of. I mean, this guy hasn't had a lot of interaction, and as you can see, he's not even squirming around. This guy is actually a rescue that only was fed every 14 days, and besides that, he kind of was never handled. So you can see already how well he's doing. They're not going to jump around on you. They're going to kind of just chill on your hand. They're very beautiful, and they've also been in the market for a long time. So what's really cool is that they're really cheap, and you can find some really beautiful colors for a very cheap price. There's like Tremper albinos for like 30 bucks. If you go to a reptile expo, you might be able to get one for cheaper. One of my favorite parts about keeping leopard geckos is that they don't really require UVB. You still should give them some kind of calcium supplement like vitamin D3. You can just dust your crickets or mealworms, whatever you feed them. But they're a nocturnal species, which is why they don't really require the UVB. Very easy to take care of. They only eat maybe 3-4 times a week. I think they're from Afghanistan. That makes them pretty easy to take care of in terms of humidity. You don't have to keep it high. Who can look at that and not want to get one? They're just freaking awesome. They're just some of the coolest species ever. Look at that face, it's just so cute. If you're more of an amphibian person, the number 3 on the list is perfect for you. It's the Dumpy tree frog. They're some of the best frogs that I've ever owned. It just peed on me.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
These are some of the easiest species to take care of. They like to eat bugs, and they are very, very good eaters. My frog has never refused a meal, always loves to eat. There's a lot of other frogs out there that just kind of like to move around so much and jump around. These Dumpy tree frogs, I mean, they'll just stay on your hand like this, like forever. If you want to keep one, I would say anywhere from a 15 to a 20 gallon would work for it. If you want to keep a pair, which is what I do, you can comfortably keep a pair in a 30 gallon enclosure. They do like to sit in water, so always have a water bowl or just have some ledges that you can pour water into. They love water, they love getting in and out of it. They do get pretty big. This is almost full grown, but I think that that's kind of better because it makes them more of a hardy species. Now you don't want to handle them too much just because, like most frogs, they can absorb whatever's on your hand, so definitely don't hold them if you've been handling chemicals because they can absorb it and they'll just croak.
Oh brother, this guy stinks!
The next species on this list is a corn snake. Now I've never owned a corn snake before, I've owned only king snakes, but they're kind of similar, and corn snakes are really cool. I know that they're readily available like practically everywhere. They're even kind of cheap at most chain pet stores, but I would still get one from a breeder. If you go to a reptile expo, you can probably find a regular or normal type corn snake for probably like 10 to 15 bucks. So the barrier to entry on corn snakes is very, very low. And just like a lot of animals on this list, they've been bred for years, basically since the 90s. And so you can find all kinds of colors now, mutations, patterns, I mean, the possibilities are endless. They do get a little longer. They get to about 5 to 6 feet, with some growing up to 7 feet, but they stay still pretty slender bodied. They're not a huge snake to where you won't be able to handle it on your own. These are more of an active snake, so it'll be pretty cool watching them slither around. And you can even make like a jungle gym. There's a couple people that have made like little jungle gyms for them, and you can just kind of see them crawl around. It's just super cool. Very cool snakes. They're very easy to care for as well. One of my favorite morphs of corn snakes is the Okatee corn snake. I think that those colors are just amazing. And if money's not really an issue for you, the palmetto corn snake is one of the most beautiful snakes I've ever seen. Number 1 on the list is the Crested Gecko. Now the reason I made it number 1 on the list is because 1, they don't require a large enclosure, even as adults. I would say anywhere from 15 to 20 gallons. You want to have more of a vertical enclosure for them, but nowadays you can find 20 gallons on Marketplace or eBay or something for like 20-30 bucks. I like buying the I Heart Geckos conversion kits so that you can make any 20 gallon or 10 gallon or whatever you're gonna get into a vertical enclosure. Now, if you don't like feeding snakes rodents and you don't like feeding bugs to lizards, well, this is the perfect reptile for you, because Crested Geckos and most New Caledonian geckos, they don't need to eat bugs. It is very beneficial for them to eat bugs, but they don't need them. You can feed them something like a Crested Gecko diet, and they'll do just fine. This is my little guy here, Cinequil, and he is just one of the best reptiles I've ever owned. They don't need UVB because they are also a nocturnal species. And something about Crested Geckos is that they will actually have like a fire down and a fired up look to them, So right now he's fired down, but as you can see there's like a tinge of red right there. So when he's fired up, he'll be more of a vibrant, like orangey red with darker yellows, and it's just awesome. As babies, they can be a little bit more flighty, but with enough handling and trust, they will get used to you. Crested geckos can be a little bit more expensive, but for the most part, a lot of mutations, kind of like this Harlequin Dalmatian here, are pretty cheap. You can buy a really nice looking crested gecko for about $100 now. So after watching this video, let me know, what species are you going to end up buying as your first reptile? And if I missed one, let me know down in the comments, what would you rather have as the #1 reptile for beginners? Go ahead and watch these 2 videos that YouTube has recommended to you. Peace!